Star Colonel Brandon Howell did not react to the respectful voice behind him, keeping his gaze fixed on the broad expanse ahead. The Dinju Overlook, a beak-like crest that stood at the far end of a broad canyon that was the Dinju Pass, which led directly to the silvery outline of the mining city of Dinju Heights, only barely visible in the distance. If nothing else, we must win this upcoming battle to punish whoever was in charge of naming things on this benighted planet. In our recent video highlighting the battle between the Comguard and the invading clans on Tukayyid in 3052, I picked out a level 2 that I thought would perform well. The responses to it were great, sometimes challenging, and even a few that included the cicada. There are no words. But it was a fun little exercise, so in the spirit of fairness to the clanner fans out there, I'm going to go ahead and do the opposite side of the battle from the perspective of one of the invading clans. However, the response to the question, what star would you bring to Tukayyid, is likely to be impacted by which of the 7 invading clans you'd be fighting for, not just for the fact that each of the clans have their own preferences and exclusive battle mechs, but also the battlefields on which they expected to fight. With that in mind, and considering my completely unbiased nature, I'm going to randomly choose one of the 7 invading clans to focus on for the purposes of this video. I'm going to let Minifrog create a method for determining it. Ready? Alright, let's see. Great, Clan Jade Falcon. Thanks, Minifrog. Back to the mech simulators now, and don't come back until you've slain 100 wolves. So now let's get to it. For my ideal Tukayyid Jade Falcon star, we're going to need to look at the lay of the land first. Being a planet known for its agricultural areas, it's not surprising that the southern Presno Plain was dominated by large plowed fields and intermittent wild grassland. With only the occasional orchard to provide modest shade, Presno is otherwise a wide open area without any cover and little opportunity for anything but a straight-up fight. It was the ground on which the Jade Falcons hoped to do much of their fighting, with only a nominal effort required to take control of the objectives following the inevitable outcome. The Comguard avoided that fight and instead harassed the Jade Falcons through tactics that intensely irritated the Falcons and whittled away at the clan forces. Beyond the Presno Plain cuts the Presno River, which is the primary water source for the region. It makes an impressive east-west slash across the land with a width of 250 meters at its narrowest point, with a strong current powerful enough to bring down a battle mech if its Mechwarrior was not extremely careful with each step. The river's depth and rough waters also made fording it in lighter mechs an impossible task. 2 bridges crossed the river, which were a natural choke point for any attempt to move onto the objectives on both sides of the fight knew it. There was intense debate among the Jade Falcons for how the bridges would be secured. The bickering was intense and was getting into the minutiae of appropriate artillery support and ammunition expenditures before Eadeh Pride stepped in and bid his Falcon Guard to take both bridges. This was rebuffed by the Khan, but it at least moved things forward. Eadeh was ever the impatient one. The fight for control of the bridges was fierce, but the Jade Falcons gradually moved forward. Only obvious in hindsight, the Comguard measured their response at each bridge to make sure that the Falcons would begin to cross in their mechs nearly simultaneously. When nearly half of each attacking cluster was on the bridge, hidden charges were set off on the spans, which sent both bridges and the Falcons on them to the bottom of the river, awash first in fire and then in rushing water. In a single blow, the Comguard had decimated 2 of the strongest clusters in Clan Jade Falcon in exchange for only modest losses. The surviving Falcons on the southern bank of the river were then hit with pre-sighted artillery, which further compounded the horrific losses they just endured. With no easy way to cross the river, the Falcon Guard under Eadeh and Martha Pride's leadership adopted a bold strategy of hopping across the river using breakwaters created by submerged battle mechs and creating a beachhead on the north side of the river. At 2 relatively shallow points in the river, the Falcons eventually were able to fight their way across at the cost of additional much-needed battle mechs. Once on the north side of the Presno River, the 2 objectives, Olalla and Humptulips, were 2 towns of really no value beyond the trial. With the losses the Falcons had already experienced up to this point, the only option was to abandon both objectives and to seek only a partial victory by taking 1. Unfortunately, when the Star of Falcons approached the town of Olalla, they discovered it was no longer a real settlement but a fake one built over bunkers and emplacements where Comguard forces were lying in wait. Eager to finally achieve something that vaguely looked like honorable battle, the Jade Falcons descended upon Alala with a fury that caused the comm guard there to buckle. By the end of the evening of May 8th and into the next morning, Clan Jade Falcon had achieved one of the two objectives of the trial. Alas, the victory would not be long-lasting, as the comm guard, who were stationed at Humptulips, attacked the Falcons from the west. 6 divisions of comm guard attacked the overextended Falcons, and the hope for at least a partial victory began to crumble completely. In a fighting retreat from Alala, the Falcons continued to rack up large numbers of kills on the comm guard, which seemed to exist in growing numbers rather than depleting ones. When a supply depot on the north side of the river was struck by a comm guard aerospace fighter, any hopes of turning this fight around went up in smoke. Star Colonel Eadeh Pride forged his place in the remembrance when he led the Falcon Guard in the covering action which allowed much of the remaining Clan Jade Falcon forces to recross the river and return to the dropships in the south. Ultimately, the Clan Jade Falcon portion of the Battle of Tukayyid was ruled a draw, though many contested either way. In comparison to some of the defeats elsewhere, the Falcons absolutely outperformed. Yet they also did not achieve the clear-cut victories that the Wolves and the Ghost Bears had in their portions of the trial. One of the unintended consequences, only really fully appreciated later on, was the psychological impact that the defeat had on the Jade Falcons, who not just felt the sting of defeat, but in a manner that was so underhanded and dishonorable that it made it easy to justify future brutality. The original clan invasion may have died on Tukayyid, but it ended up also killing any delusion that the conquest of Terra could be achieved in any other way than a knockdown, drag-out brawl. In respect, looking back at the dawn of the Ill Clan era, it's easy to understand how monsters like Malvina Hazen and Alaric Ward would rise to power in this much more nasty and no-holds-barred fight for power. So if I were to build a star for the Jade Falcons, I'd need to focus on several key points. The first being an emphasis on energy weapons over ammunition-based loadouts, and the other is mobility, specifically among the heaviest mechs within the star. I think I've created a pretty solid list, so let's check it out. Our first battle mech is the Clan Jade Falcon favorite, and one which I've personally enjoyed using many times in the past. The Black Lanner, specifically the primary configuration, is a speedy 55-ton clan Omnimech which can hit hard at all ranges and can remain in the fight for longer thanks to its use of a mask system for quick bursts of speed and an ECM suite to mask it from incoming fire. In battle, the 10 double heat sinks aren't capable of handling an alpha strike, however both the ER medium lasers, the LRM-10 and the SRM-6 can be fired on the run without going into the red. The choice to swap in the ER large laser is made easier when the LRM shots are too sketchy and the SRM-6 is out of range. We've covered the Black Lanner on the channel before, so I won't go too deeply into it beyond saying it's a solid performer and one of those mechs that is just dangerous enough to be a problem, but not so dangerous that you have to deal with it immediately. That's where you want to be with a medium battle mech. The next mech in our star is another Jade Falcon exclusive for the Battle of Tukayyid. The 75-ton Night Gyre in its primary configuration packs a pair of ERPPCs and an Ultra AC-10 for a long-range punch. This possible 50 points of damage out to 18 hexes or 30 to 23 hexes is excellent for what the mech is. The 2 ERPPCs are going to be quality producers even if the 20 shots of autocannon ammo run out. The 20 double heat sinks are more than enough to handle the heat generated at long range, and within 12 hexes, it's possible to start mixing in the 3 medium pulse lasers without too much issue. The 11.5 tons of ferrofibrous armor also make the mech a tough nut to crack, so a concerted effort has to be invested in it. Overall, the Night Gyre is an excellent addition to any star. Now I think for our next spot, we need something big that can really throw its weight around. Perhaps something with a tabletop model so large it takes up the neighboring hexes. Ah yes, let's add a Turkina. 95 tons of nearly flightless fury, the Turkina is an imposing battlefield presence. First deployed within the inner sphere at the Battle of Tukayyid, the Turkina boasted a massive 42 tons of pod space. Though not speedy, the Turkina did sport jump jets which improved its mobility considerably. For the purposes of our star, we're going to go with the B configuration, which packs the Turkina with a pair of large pulse lasers, twin ER large lasers, 2 ER medium lasers, and 2 medium pulse lasers, all supported by a targeting computer. The 25 double heat sinks allow for the mech to fire all 4 of the large lasers without any overheating issues, and their improved accuracy makes facing down the Turkina B a very dangerous task. Though our Turkina will be the slowest mech of the bunch, those 3 jump jets are key to making it a viable and powerful addition to our star. Our fourth entry into our Tukayyid star is the Stormcrow A. A veteran medium omni-mech of the clan invasion by 3052, the Stormcrow had a well-earned reputation as a nasty and powerful battle mech. Though it lacks jump jets, the 690 movement profile allowed it to keep up with the lighter mechs like our Blackwell in order to deliver a deadly payload of 4 medium pulse lasers and 2 streak SRM-6s. And before it gets there, it can still contribute to the fight with its LRM-20 launcher and 2 tons of ammunition. The 10 double heat sinks are a limitation, however, at the short range, the A configuration can fire all of its weapons save the LRM-20 and be only 4 over on the heat scale while standing still. Moving at full speed, the Stormcrow A has an edge over the ComGuard opponents with its more accurate laser fire from the medium pulse lasers. Overall, the A configuration is a nasty killer of lights and mediums and can hit above its weight against heavies that underestimate the mech at close range. I foresee the Stormcrow and Blackwell working together along with our 5th entry in our star. And here we are. So far we've had a couple of strong medium mechs, a hard-hitting assault, and a long-range heavy mech. What should we do for our last spot? Ah yes, let's add an Ebon Jaguar. While often assumed to be a Smoke Jaguar exclusive, the Ebon Jaguar was spotted among the Tumans of the Falcons and Steel Vipers on Tukayyid. The 65-ton menace of an Omni-Mech earned its Inner Sphere designation, Cauldron-born, during the Battle of Luthien, where Combined Forces noted it seemed to withstand punishing fire without falling. I've picked the B configuration, though I have made some modifications as a quasi-MF variant. If you're familiar with the B configuration, you know it has way more energy weapons than it can reasonably fire, and in practice, often the twin ERPPCs in the mech go unused in favor of the 2 large pulse lasers. I've rectified this issue by just pulling both of the PPCs in favor of 2 LRM-15s in the left and right torsos, along with 3 tons of ammunition. 15 double heat sinks keep the mech relatively cool in all but the most intense situations. The 2 sets of pulse lasers are untouched, but I did have enough room for an anti-missile system and that oh-so-crucial emotional support ER small laser. This modified B configuration of the Ebon Jaguar provides much more sustainable fire at all ranges, and that 5.8 movement profile can help it keep up with the Stormcrow and Blackwell. Those 3 mechs working together along with the fire support from the Nightgyre and the Turkina makes an intimidatingly powerful star. Of course, I had to find out how it would perform, so I loaded the star up in Megamech and set it against our ComGuard level 2 from the previous video. The Black Knight, Guillotine, Crab, Archer, Thug, and King Crab received some piloting and gunner skill boosts to make the battle value roughly comparable, and they had a 100-ton advantage over the clan star with the 6th battle mech. Out of the gate, the Jade Falcons marched forward with the intent of using some buildings to shield some of the incoming fire while focusing on a few select targets. It worked marginally well as the Nightgyre and Turkina had free rein to burn down the ComGuard mechs as they approached. Though the Blackwell was able to flank the ComGuard mechs, the Ebon Jaguar was eventually caught too far out in the open and taken down. As mechs began to fall, it turned into a slugfest between the heavy ComGuard mechs and the comparatively lighter clan designs. Though for some reason the Crab's pilot decided to just make a beeline for the top of the map in a flanking maneuver that rendered it unable to help its peers for most of the fight. The King Crab proved to be resilient in the face of intense incoming fire. The Dice Gods were on its side as it only fell after almost all of its armor was destroyed. Ultimately, the clan star was able to take the field, though at the cost of the Stormcrow and the Ebon Jaguar. The Blackwell survived, though it suffered significant damage and would likely be out of the fight for the duration of the conflict. The Turkina and Nightgyre suffered only armor damage. While I wouldn't say the fight was entirely fair, it did present a good opportunity to test just how well the clan star functioned as a unit, and the results were positive and encouraging. This was a fun little thought experiment, and I'm curious now what clan star you would build for the fight on Tukayyid. Would you build an imposing wall of assaults to take down those clan buster king crabs, or build a fleet of foot scouting star filled with ice ferrets and fire moths? Drop your lists in the comments below and we'll keep the discussion going. If you want to see more of this kind of video where we build some fun lists for various battles, let me know as well. The jury is still out for me and I could be influenced one way or the other. Thanks as always for watching, and if you got this far in the video and feel it's worthy, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss out on future nonsense, and I can enjoy seeing a little number go up slightly. Until we meet again, remember that you matter and can make a positive impact on those around you. Now go out and make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.